Life. The vibes are immaculate. Welcome, everyone. I'm here with Holly and Felix of Practical
Hello.
Personality, and
Hello.
we've been chatting a little bit. And I thought I'd have them on, and we talk about our journeys, where we're going, where we've been. I think we're gonna have a good time. So we were just having a great talk about the hero's journey itself, but if I am curious about your guys, like what's where have your hero's journeys started and been leading you? I know, Felix, you moved from Transylvania to to New Zealand, New Jersey.
So, well, yes, I
He's
was
still a vampire, by the way.
yes, I was born in Transylvania, which most people probably don't know, but I grew up in Germany. And in 2 years ago, in the middle
Yeah.
of 2022, I moved to New Zealand to live here with Holly.
Well, how did that happen? Like, did you hit? Was it easy for you, or was there a moment of was there a dark night of the soul?
I think the Dark Night of the Soul came way, way earlier because the whole journey was very much connected to my biggest fear. And I always struggled with emotional connection, especially in a romantic sense. I was always like terrified of rejection, which then became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like I always had positive friend groups, but like really connecting in a romantic sense and having the relationship I wanted always eluded me. And yeah, there were just different, I think, parts in my journey that helped me become more aware of that. Like one really big step was learning about Brené Brown and her research on shame and vulnerability, and really seeing that being vulnerable and open and showing up fully is maybe the important piece in connection, and actually being yourself in that way. Because I think I was mostly hiding myself, being really afraid of embarrassment as a decider, wanting to impress, wanting to have the significance, wanting people to think how smart and capable I am. While that was true in some areas, it was definitely not true in other areas. And like this part I try to keep hidden, which doesn't work. Like it comes through in your vibe. People might not be able to articulate what's wrong with you, but they fucking know, and they don't trust you, and they will not want to be connected with you. And then at some point, and like I could really practice, like I just trusted Brené Brown. I think really connected to her because, like me, she's an ST. She comes from this kind of science-based perspective where everything like is clean, is provable, is true. And then what she found out and what gave her a breakdown is, look, no, it's all about the feelings. It's all about vulnerability. It's all about letting go. And this really inspired me, and I could learn like firsthand how important vulnerability is and how much greater your connections become if you dare to do that. And then at some point I found OP. I learned about my type, and with OP, I think there's like an attitude to it that a lot of people find off-putting, that this idea of everything is your fault, right? You're responsible for everything, which sounds like a very heavy and tough burden to bear. But like, I think this is just one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is like, so if everything is your fault and like all your misery and why I was unhappy and didn't have the relationship I wanted, if that's my fault, then it's also in my power to change that and actually create the life I want and build the relationships I want to have. And like starting, like getting this clarity on my type and seeing. So by the way, I'm double feminine, TISE, consume, sleep, play, blast. So FE is my last function with no activation. It's just double, triple demon. Like there's nothing there. And
there's something there. You shush.
Well, you're getting my type. It gave me just clarity and kind of the focus on, okay, I need to work on this. And then I was very lucky that the community was already there in 2020 when I got type. So I could join the community with this idea of I want to work on myself, I want to connect, I want to make friends, I want to find people who are interested in the same thing. And then I did. It was kind of this really incredible environment so you can grow and do what you need to kind of challenge yourself and kind of become more balanced overall. And like I made great friendships that also carried on into real life. And then at some point in 2021, I met Holly. She reached out to me because she wanted to get typed. She wanted to have more perspective, just gather more opinions to figure out what's going on with her.
Harass the tribe.
Yeah, harass the tribe. Like, she has her own story to tell about that soon. And yeah, we immediately connected and we immediately liked each other. And some people ask us, so does it have to do with type? So did you use your type to find the perfect partner, do all the perfect type math? And like, no, we did not. Like, we think this is complete bullshit. If you adhere to that, I don't think you're on the right path. But like, OP in this community helped us connect, brought us together, but then we connected on just very classical things, that we had the same values, that we wanted to live the same kind of life, that we were just attracted to each other, just completely normal things. And OP was a common interest, but also like a tool for us to understand ourselves and to communicate that and to see each other more clearly and accurately. So we, like, since then, we've been using it a lot to communicate in our relationship.
I do find that the communication of like, you know, this is how I'm doing, or like, this is, you know, I'm gonna feel it. This is how I feel. Let's acknowledge it and then work through it. It helps you not, like, how often we project. You guys had a video on projection recently. I mean, I met what might have been a twin flame like 2 weeks ago. Went on a few dates, and it was so intense. And I was projecting onto her that she was playing games with me, because I don't lie, but I like will act aloof. I will exaggerate things, like for a fact. And like I was like, okay, she said she didn't want to see me, and then she showed up at the cafe, and then all this passion happened again after she said she didn't want. Like, she must have planned that, because it's something like an NF would like plan out. Like, she must be playing with my emotions. She must be. And I was like, hey, I thought you were sending out lures for me to pursue you. That's why I pushed. And she's like, no, I'm 100% authentic. I tell the truth all the time. I was like, oh, I was projecting on you that you were playing games, because like I'm a magician who's always poking people's emotions all the time. So I'm like, you must be poking my emotions. And it wasn't true. I miscalculated. I projected and then I asked my friends who were advising, guess what my friends are like? They're like, she's playing games with you. She planned that out. It's like, you gotta be careful. Everyone's gonna be projecting. Everyone's gonna be like, I wouldn't have shown up. It's like, no. Like, sometimes people don't know why they do stuff. Like, sometimes people act not knowing. They're unconscious of things. I'm like, I would have been conscious of that, and maybe she's not. And so the whole thing got messed up.
Oh no.
But it's just a 101 in projection. I'm just like, gosh. And she said, be authentic. She had a near-death experience, and that's what really was like, I really want to connect with you. And I failed. But I'm fine. Like, I'm just like, I'm doing great.
So like, wait, what happened with it?
It was so fiery, and it just so much like we matched on Hinge. She was like, I need to meet you today. And I was like, oh, let's do tomorrow at my book club I set up. So she comes to my book club. I message her. I go, so I'm thinking of stopping by Barnes & Noble and picking up something scandalous. And she's like, do it. I was just like, yes. So I went up and got The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene.
Oh, wow.
She brought like a bunch of magazines, like a consume last, like to the book club. And then we skedaddled out of there. It was just like 2 days and a ton of passion, just so intense. And then she was just like, we both have issues. And this is too intense. This is too hot. We can't have a healthy connection. I was like, and I thought she was playing games with me. I thought she was making me chase. And I'm like, well, I respect her for making me chase. And like, you know, you see some people like quiet up. They're like, and what they're probably thinking is that, well, is that healthy? Like, that you're doing this cat and mouse game. And I wish I had just gone straight forward and just connected and been honest. So
is it
I was like trying to be aloof. I've gotten hurt in the past, like, and blamed it on being too authentic. So what
is it possible she's doing feeling and just got freaked out by the intensity?
I believe so. She looked like an ISTJ. She had SIIs. She just would keep pinging me and pulling other people in the conversation, and she was pretty observery. Like would literally stop the whole everything that was going on. Like, there's lint, get rid of that, gross. Like it was very endearing, but also a very adventurous person. So I was like, we want the same life, you know, like it was like that. But then it was just like she said, I won't date you unless you get therapy. I was like, I haven't gotten therapy yet. So that's where it's at. I think I'll run into her in the future, but who knows? It is what it is. I think I need to give it a rest for a while.
It sounds like
I've been going too hard on them romances, you know?
Yeah.
Felix is making a face.
Are you confused?
No. I was in between, but now it's cleared up.
Right.
Yeah.
Just a
Sorry
little bit.
for pulling my personal issues in, but it's fun.
Yeah.
We can make this a therapy session. It's okay.
This is my therapy session. I will say though, Felix, you mentioned the OP community, and I can't say how much it's helped me as well, because I spent 3 years where I'd only see friends once every 6 months, and I only had a few friends. And I didn't leave my house. And then I started just going out by myself, and now I literally have friends I made at the places I go out that they're like, I can't work this job if you have a job and you can't be here during the day. And they tell me they love me, and I tell them I love them. And I haven't had friends that were that close, like ever.
Oh, that's nice.
That I'm at the point where I'm like, I'm no longer like, I've set out a plan for myself that's a A, B, C, D, and E plan, where it's more like each is a tier. You work up from E to A. It's like a pyramid.
Yeah.
And you build each layer, and each layer you get the skills to go to the next, but you decide, I will be happy at any layer of this pyramid. Instead of being a crazy number one going, I have to do this and change the world. Like, that would be maximizing my potential. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. And I'm like, I don't feel like I have to do that out of fear. I want to do that out of love to help the people in my life. The people who are like, my life is falling apart. I'm like, how do I help this person? I'm like, wow, I really have to get into business. Like, I really have to do like real business, you know? I have to take things serious. And it's like, shit, like I'll be happy with this much money in a career and healthy life, just helping people, reading people's fortunes. I could be happy doing that for the rest of my life. But if I really want to have more impact, it's like storytelling, media, higher up the ladder. And it's like, how do I do that in like almost a 3-way, where it's like I take each step slowly and don't just go straight for what I want and just burn everything to the ground by moving to California and I'm gonna be a director and blah blah. It's like I don't even want that. You know? Yeah. But enough about me.
I think one of the tough things, like when it comes to, this is something that I've experienced, and Felix probably experiences it too, let me know if you do, is that like you have this need to help people, but like your self-worth is tied to the outcome of helping someone. And at the end of the day, you can only do so much. Like they actually need to want to help themselves. So you give them the tools and then they actually have to apply it. And if you've tied your self-worth to the outcome of them helping themselves and that doesn't happen, then you feel really shitty about yourself. And so that's something that I kind of had to, and am still dealing with, is I really want to help people, but that's not my end goal. Like my, like how I feel about myself is not tied to that. Is it the same for you?
I think it's similar, but maybe a bit different, that I do have this strong desire to help people, to share what I've learned, what helped me. But then there's judgment that's in the way, kind of seeing people make the mistakes that I made in the past. It's easy for me to judge them because of it. Just getting really annoyed and fed up. It's like, why do you keep doing this? It's just stupid bullshit. Like, I have some answers for you, and if you would do that, your life would get better. But this is not the right attitude to have. So people actually want to listen to you, want to trust you. That I need to be able to embrace people for who they are right now much better, and like not need to change them for me. So I'm satisfied that I have this weird expectation of people that just isn't realistic, that's coming from me, that's forcing my expectations onto reality. And this is no way to actually connect and help people, instead of like being open, being non-judgmental, and just being inviting, right? To talk about what I want to talk about, what I think helped me. And maybe you like it, maybe you don't. If you think you like it, if you resonate with that, you invite it. If you don't care for that, if it offends you, if you just don't think it's going to help you, then that's okay too. Like, I might have a different opinion, but I accept whatever it is.
Well, I think there is a certain amount of patience, and I fear myself getting like that. Like, I see people who are older than me who are suffering, like a little bit older than me, and they're becoming jaded, becoming very jaded. And the villains in the story are the people who went on the hero's journey, got hurt, and didn't heal. And some of those people are people who are like, I love you. Like, I know they're suffering. I know they won't listen to my advice, but they helped me so much when I was in a dark spot and I didn't know, that I'm like, no, out of love, I love you and I want you in my life and I want you to be happy and I want you to take care of yourself and be the best version of yourself. And I've been talking, one of these people I've been talking to, her name is Michael. She's been in some of my posts. She invited me to a formal, and we've been talking, like, you can share some of OP when you really simplify it down. So if you just talk about social type, someone will consume that. So I thought my friend Michael was a 2. And then I was starting to realize, no, she's a 4, but she's doing kind of 2 things and not succeeding at them. And I'm getting, like, I was like watching her like post things on her Facebook that were like, I'm like Empress and I don't care what people think. And I'm like, oh, that's really closed off energy. And then I start to hear a story, and it's the 4 story where I helped my friends and they turned their backs on me, and no one I help people and they never help me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you do need to take some time for yourself and care for yourself, like a lot. But I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, helping my friends is also a prototype for helping other people in the life coaching. So it's like the life coaching, it's not even a goal of mine. It's like, in retirement, I'd like to be a public speaker. Like, that's kind of like all the way down the line. In retirement, I'd just like to be Tony Robbins. I don't even want to do that straight up. But like looking up Layla Hermosi made tier lists of skills you need to have to run a business. And one of them is coaching, because you need to have a team and you need to coach them. If you want to be a manager, you need to be able to talk someone through their problems and do it in a way that leaves them happy, felt understood, weans them into it, gets them there. And life coaching is just a skill that will translate to business. Honestly. Now, one thing else I've noticed, though, is my perspective on life coaching is I'm not going to do life coaching in OP. We're not connected enough. So I just started reeling people in from the fortune telling, and yeah, and you know, like, you know, maybe I'll scale it, get a website, you know, eventually, and I'm just handing out free advice and free fortunes, and so people start saying, hey, we have to pay you. I'm just doing it for free. But one thing I kind of realized was speaking OP to people in public is antisocial.
Yeah, that is something that I've especially noticed. Like the more I get into OP, the more difficult it's becoming to talk to people outside of OP, because I'm getting so used to speaking that language that now it's like, okay, how do I actually have a meaningful conversation with someone and not reference OP? And that's been something that I've been trying to do lately, is figure out, okay, so how can I still talk about OP, but talk about it in a way that other people would understand, that doesn't even reference OP.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly that. It's very true. Because honestly, when you're having a surface level conversation with someone, you can probably only give them a singular coin at a time to explain anything. Anything else, their brain turns to mush. You can reference stuff they already know. So I mean, like, the four functions you have relate to like the 4 cardinal elements: fire, wind, water, all that stuff, which are in like tarot cards. You know, that's swords, that means winds, that means thought, you know.
Okay.
And if you get speaking someone's language that they already know, you can then start translating. So for instance, I'm at this woo-woo cafe, and we're talking about like, I'm literally talking to people who are energy healers, right? Reiki healers, talking about chakras and
Yeah.
colors.
Yeah.
And then you start to go, wait, okay, purple is actually kind of NF. It's spiritual, higher self, like higher spectrum, right? It's NF. And red means grounding, and grounding means it's reality, grounded to reality, and that's more SF or ST. And so you start going like we can talk about these colors because they're used for advertising. Like for the chakras, it's like advertising. So like blue is reliable and truth telling and dependable and loyal. And like a loyal brand, you'll think of a blue thing. Something that's communal is green. You think of all the leaves on the tree or little blades of grass. And that's like that's feelings and connection. And so you start translating it to stuff that's actually easier for people to understand. And it's pro-social. So I suggest if you're into life coaching, you start working on people in public. You know, I think that's like, hey, I'm a mope. I'm talking to people, strangers every day, and I'm like, you would not believe some of the random stuff you get pulled into. It's crazy. You could just say stuff and people will like show up. My third reading will be exactly what I asked for. I literally said, I need a therapist. And the third person that day who I read a fortune for was a therapist.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Who said, my friends think I'm magical. They like, Henry's magic. I'm like, nah. The
Henry's
universe
the
is sending me what I need at the time I need it. You just have to ask for the right stuff.
Yeah, no, it's really difficult with OP. Like I had mixed responses because I actually used one of my OP videos to get the job that I currently have as a data analyst for the Government Department for Statistics here in New Zealand. So I did this video on the Airtable data. So the Airtable is the biggest community database that we have on typed people with over 1,000 people. And before I was looking for a job, before I even had a work visa here, I did this project where I analyzed the data, like wrote some code, automated everything, and then made a video on it to present the most interesting results. And then I used that video in my job interview because one of the tasks that I was given to prepare was to prepare an 8-minute presentation on a data analysis project I had done in the past. So I did that, and the people, I think, found it interesting. Well, they ended up giving me the job, so that was good. But like a few months later, we had our team meeting, and as part of the team meeting, as preparation, everybody was supposed to do the Myers-Briggs test. And my manager, who was part of this interview a few months prior, knew about like my interest in psychology. And she's like, Felix, so we're going to talk about Myers-Briggs, but then afterwards you can tell us why this is all bullshit. This is my job interview. And then I talked a little bit about OP and kind of the difference between Myers-Briggs and just the OP approach. I didn't go into any technical details, but then afterwards, one of the others was like, okay, Felix, so essentially you're telling us you're part of a cult. Yeah, I guess kind of, yeah. So I just know how off-putting it can be if you don't do it in the right way. But like I think there are a lot of like archetypes that are known, like the martyr and the narcissist, right? These are unhealthy extreme tendencies, or like just extreme instances of tendencies that are naturally in everyone. And everyone knows that, or like just the spectrum between OCD and ADHD. It's like, okay, this is also something that we find in our system again. Introversion, extroversion. Everyone knows this. Right? And these might be angles to use to create interest, I guess.
Yeah. I kind of want to pivot to learning more about Holly. I feel like we the DIs have been talking about ourselves, and Holly's like, yeah, tell me more about yourself. And then I'm like, when is it my turn?
No, that's not what I was thinking. I was actually thinking, oh, good, we missed me.
What? No, wow, too bad. We want to hear about Holly. I know, Holly, you've said before, like your kind of journey has been that you always put on the hat of whoever you were with. Yeah, and you were always kind of going like, I'm just with you, and I'll be horse girl with horse man. I don't know. Like, I don't know the specifics of it. I'm just
yeah. It was very much so like pretty much all throughout my adult life, I just kind of jumped from relationship to relationship. So when one relationship ended, I didn't consciously know that I was seeking out another relationship, but I guess that I was kind of putting out those vibes because I was running away from the fear of being by myself. I did not want to be alone. And I didn't know, I was afraid of what that would mean for me if I was by myself, because then I'd be forced to actually look at myself and look at what I like and what I don't like and how I want to live my life. And the more that I jumped to another relationship, the further away I got from figuring that out. Because every relationship that I got into, I would take on that other person's identity. So I would just live their life. I'd live with their friends. I would have their hobbies, like everything. And then I kind of had my first massive tidal wave when one relationship ended and the next relationship that I jumped into was a very unhealthy one. So I'd been quite lucky before that, where all the partners that I'd chosen had been really nice. And this one relationship, it's not that the person wasn't nice, it's just that I was needing things from him that he couldn't give me because I should have been looking at myself. And so I kind of found myself both depressed and anxious. And that was my rock bottom moment where I was like, okay, something has to change. Otherwise, I can't see my life getting any better. And so that was when I left the relationship. I also had to leave a job at the same time because it was putting a lot of pressure on me as well that I couldn't cope with. And then I spent a bit of time by myself. I lived alone. And so I was really forced to spend time with myself and do that sleep and figure out like how do I want to live in the SF? Because that was a big part that was missing for me. And then when I met Felix, we got to know each other slowly over time. We became friends first, and the connection just kind of developed without any expectation because I wasn't coming from that place of need, that place of I have to be with someone. And of course, he was on the other side of the world as well. So
no expectations here. Nothing's gonna happen.
I couldn't be like, "Hey, Felix, move in with me."
It's like I also didn't come from a place of need, which was really important for me too, which was kind of my big struggle too, just in the opposite way. And the idea that we would actually live together, that we would start a romantic relationship and that one of us would move around the world just seemed completely absurd.
We weren't even considering that when we first started talking. It was just friends. We were just getting to know someone who had a similar mind. And that's kind of how it started. And then we kind of realized that, hey, there's something here and how are we going to make this work? And it just kind of grew over time. But the good thing is that like having OP, I know what my tendencies are. I know that I really want to outsource my DI, unintentionally outsource my DI all the time. And that I will want to do that with Felix. Like whenever we have to make a decision, I'm always like, what do you want? Instead of asking myself what I want. But he is really good at going, what do you want? You make this decision. So he puts the pressure back on me as well, so that we're kind of both working together, being aware of each other's voids and working with those. And that's been really helpful. I think that kind of in the time that we've been together, I've been able to kind of build an FI and feel a little bit more comfortable standing on that, because that's the problem is that I might know what I want, but if it goes against what other people want, I'm not allowed to voice that. And then dealing with the negativity that comes from, because then if I say, no, I'm going to do this, and I know that other people don't want to do this or other people don't like that, then I have to deal with the negativity that comes from being the person who goes against the tribe in a way. And that's hard.
Yeah, and then we also need to communicate in a way that I might want something different, but still the best course of action is always for her to tell me what she actually wants, even if it contradicts what I want, because then we have like a truthful basis to work from. Then we can negotiate about that and see how we decide. But it would be way more problematic in time if she just goes with what I want, if she just represses her needs, because then at some point later on she will blow up at me, and she knows that I know that. This is just how it works for everyone. And kind of being also aware that we both have feeling last. So we really try to avoid emotionally negatively charged situations. That we can't do that for too long. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So just putting all the cards on the table and having maybe a little bit negativity here and having to negotiate between exactly all the tarot cards and negotiating between our DIs is the right thing to do. And we kind of need to put pressure on ourselves to actually do that.
Yeah, it's kind of like having like a balloon full of helium, and you're slowly letting out the negativity slowly over time. So every time that something happens that either one of us doesn't like, we slowly let a little bit of negativity out, and we talk about it, and then we can move on. So we don't have this big explosion of the balloon all at once.
Trying to double decide.
Yeah.
Is it hard both being blast last?
Yes.
So this is the biggest bottleneck and the biggest problem, like the feelings last, because we want to avoid the negative emotions. And then we also want to avoid like explaining ourselves. We want to avoid negotiating with the other. We want to avoid organizing us together. Like this is always the hardest
thing.
Add
on top of that, the projecting that the other person thinks the way that you do. So one thing that I often do is I forget that Felix doesn't have TE. So like at home, I'm running around doing all these things, and he's sitting there waiting for me to tell him what to do. And I'm like, why can't you just look and see that something needs to be done and do it? Because he doesn't think like that.
Or I'm rather like focusing on doing like what I think is important right now. So living with Holly is, I mean, it's great for several reasons, but one reason is like I really see TE in action and I see what I'm missing. And it's this awareness of kind of what needs to be done in the moment and being really aware of the problems that are in your environment right now and having the need to actually solve it. And I don't have that. I have a real blindness to it because I don't track my environment like that. So I just don't even think about that. I don't see it, so I just wouldn't know. And it can make me seem lazy to some extent. But then again, like I have my TI thinking, so I know the kind of projects that I want to work on, that I want to do, and I can spend a lot of focus, a lot of time in that. And if you track that, then I'm not lazy at all. But
you're definitely not lazy.
But these kinds of perceptions can easily clash. And this is like one problem, the projection, because we're just different types, we're tracking different things, having a different kind of awareness. But we can solve all that as long as we actually blast and communicate, and as long as we don't avoid the negative feelings for too long. Then everything's good.
Yeah, being blast last myself, I can imagine how it's like you're always both like duck calls.
Yep.
Like as and you're like, well, I am communicating, I am talking, but it's like you're not. That's why I had to make a practice of. Well, I will say, now that we're a half hour in, I'm gonna talk about some more salacious things. Which I mentioned to you guys before. So I experimented, and it's like blast last. Don't tell anyone, and be like, I'm gonna experiment with some mushrooms. And I know I mentioned this. So it was legal mushrooms. It was technically legal. They were sold in stores. They're like not regulated. You're shaking your head.
I don't even know. I'm saying I don't care. You don't need to qualify all that. Talk about your mushroom experience.
They were technically legal. I was self-medicating, and it led me to my death day, December 15th. It was like a never again day, right? But given the basically I took an idea from just what Shan said, which was DMT increases consciousness. DMT, and then when I would gather from the tribe, DMT is a spike like that. Like they're all mushrooms, weed, mushrooms, weed, marijuana are all considered hallucinogens, right? So I'm like, they're all categorized as the same thing. I knew that from my studies in psychology. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to wean myself up to get onto DMT, or like to try DMT. Like that was my goal, to gain. I'm like, I'm not conscious. I know. So I was experimenting with microdosing. I will tell you guys that it did shift my perception it made it easier to blast. But because I was self-medicating, and also you still have your saviors, you're still going to be delusional. You're still going to go, the NF is the answer. I know. Even though you're communicating, you're still going to go off a cliff. But I will tell you, what was actually an incredible experience was that, you know how the DEs talk about, I had a friend who was lead DE, and she'd be like, you people are giants. You're so big. And I'm just little old me, even though they were like a powerhouse.
Right.
Right? They were a powerhouse personality. And they're like, you're so my normal living perception, even today, was as if I go to the cafe and there's the mirror on the back wall, I'm just like, I cannot stop making eye contact with myself and be like, hey. Right? I'm like, I'm huge. I'm big. DI. And I will tell you, I literally experienced where it just felt like the camera lens shifts when I did it. And I'd see like the guy who was just flipping patties, he'd just look bigger. And I was like, oh, wow. Like the perspective shift would change to DE in a sense. That and I saw myself shrinking. So I was like, I even talked to a psychiatrist recently about it, and he was like, it's okay to do those things with someone guiding you. And I would only advise that. I tried to experiment on myself. Do not guinea pig yourself. You could lose everything. Get some guidance. But there is a lot of evidence that this stuff can break down. Like I was using it purposely to break down my fear pathways. And now all my friends and family say, Henry, you've transformed. You're not the same person. You make lists every day. You do every task that you set out to do. You care about the people around you. It's all this stuff. But I've seen people do it without. I see that it turned off the fear, but it didn't turn off the addictions. It turned off the fears. Like it started me on a path where I'm like, if I walk down the street and someone asks me for money, I hand out a 20. It was just like, and people are like, are you Christian? I'm like, I don't know. It just started becoming a thing where it was just like, I was in this like high, it helped me see what to do, and then crashed me to then I don't feel much fear and anxiety except about the personal connection stuff. That's it feels like the last straw. But that's what therapy's for. So, who knows? That's where I'm at. But like, it was. I feel like I have to share with people like, hey, like it did do something where I saw the other perspective. I saw the other perspective from going into it. So. Some experimentation. That's all.
Well, if I was an observer, I would go, wait, you still carry cash around? Like what? No, but Holly and I, we have our own experience with this stuff. Should we just talk about it?
I don't know what you want to talk about.
The psychedelics.
Oh, sure.
Should I start?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, no, I like what you said, that you kind of experienced the opposite in a way, that everything flipped. Because I had like one experience on magic mushrooms. Well, I was backpacking in Thailand, of course. This is how you do it. Like I really appreciate what you said earlier, that now there's a lot more and more research on psychedelics that was stalled essentially for decades because they were criminalized, and people are saying we're actually decades behind on this extremely powerful research. But everyone who seriously talks about it, who is a researcher, advises, hey, don't do this alone. Don't do this at parties. It can potentially be really dangerous. It very much depends on your state. So you should only do it with a guide, with a clinician, someone who can create the right environment and help you put everything into context, because you might gain the spike in consciousness, but if you don't process it afterwards, it's not going to do anything. Like, it's not a magic bullet, even if it can be a powerful tool. With all tools, it depends on how you use it, just the intention behind it, and kind of the process around it. And having said all that, I just, on a backpacking trip, I did magic mushrooms with a couple of people. And it was a really good and really positive environment. We were 3 who were taking the magic mushrooms, 3 others who took care of us and just made sure that we were safe. And the environment was really quiet and half in nature and beautiful. The 2 others I was with, they just wanted to have a fun trip, But by that, this was in 2019, I was already aware of the research on psychedelics, and I was intentionally looking for a spiritual experience. And everyone got what they wanted in a way. Like the other two got a fun trip, but I had this really intense experience where I saw my opposite. But for me, it was a beautiful feeling of connection, because by default, I'm very much isolated in my own perspective, which is where all my
Yes.
kind of trouble with loneliness came from in the past. And you really in a prison of your own making, right? But you don't realize that you have the key to let yourself out. And being on magic mushrooms helped me realize that, because suddenly I was looking out at just everything, with the sky, the wood above me, the people around me, and just everything looked interesting and just beautiful. And I was just so happy to be there and just be present. And like all my fear was gone. And I didn't think that nothing bad could happen to me. I know that it could, but I just felt like, okay, whatever happens, I'll be fine. I just need to kind of swing with it. And everything was also moving like a boat. And I could just swing along and I'd be fine. And I felt extremely peaceful. I felt very safe. Yeah, after a couple of hours, which felt much, much longer, this feeling kind of waned again, because at the same time, while I was feeling so peaceful and connected, I was completely useless. Like I was non-functioning.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
only thing I could really do was just lie there and be happy.
I will say, for me with the microdosing, I was studying for a certification and I didn't feel like I could study. I never wanted to consume on it. But I'd like to like write notes. It felt like it just switched my energy flows. Like, and I used it to practice doing that, switching my energy flows. And I just noticed myself get so much more introverted right when it would wear off. But yeah, Holly, have you had any experience with this stuff, or was it just Felix?
No, so the only experience I had was with weed, and shortly after Felix arrived in New Zealand, I'd made these truffles with weed oil, and we decided that we would try them one night while we were at home doing nothing, and we were watching. I don't know if you know Jack Whitehall. He's a comedian. He had
British comedian.
A British comedian had a comedy show on. So we're watching that while we're taking these things. Felix took too many, I would say. And the problem was that we were sitting on the couch, and it's like all the filters are removed from your brain, and everything you think you can't help but verbalize. And it was kind of freeing, but also kind of scary at the same time, because I was just like, okay, normally, thinking a lot of things, but I don't say them out loud because some of them are inappropriate, some of them don't make any sense, some of them are totally ridiculous, but I couldn't control that anymore. And that kind of freaked me out, actually. And I haven't done it again since. So I didn't like not having control. That was very weird for me.
So we need to be careful with immigration.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if there are other compounds in weed that make you like sleepy and lethargic and stuff. What is the problem with hallucinogens is that the effects per person are, to science, seem unpredictable. But I think if you could pair it up and predict it with maybe OP, if it was like you're an introvert, you're gonna feel the need to like communicate. You're saying I'm communicating everything. That's exactly what you said.
Yeah.
So no filter. You're like I'm not gonna keep it shut. And that scares you, and it is scary. But I feel like with the here's another thing is I went to a nutritionist on Monday, and I decided to get 2 tests. One is blood work, so it's just seeing like iron, hormones, everything that like we'll see from your blood.
Yep.
And then I had to do another one, which I had to do a fast where you just can't eat a ton of things for 2 days. It's just like meat and bread. You can't even eat cheese. And it was a P test, and it was a neurotransmitter test. So what they were testing was apparently a lot of your neurotransmitters for your brain are created in your gut biome.
Yep.
And so they're testing to see if anything's off.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I have mood issues. So I was like, let's get it done. Let's see if there's anything causing this. Um, my body has transformed in the last year. Like I lost 35 pounds and changed my diet and like I was like trying to eat the old things of just carbs. And it's just like it doesn't even fill me anymore. It just like I'm just
Okay.
like I need a salad. I need protein. I need variety. I need avocados and bananas and all nuts. And it was just like that's like yeah. So it's I feel better, and my family's like, you aren't doing this as much on the day to day. You used to just be very grumpy and it's super excitable and very grumpy. So the results might come back, hey, your gut biome is really good. But a lot of we might be able to figure some stuff out from that, and I will share what we find with everyone. Like I'll share the data I find out about stuff. Like even talking to nutritionists though, it was they seemed very knowledgeable. And one thing was I said vitamin D makes me bug-eyed and hyperactive, and they said that
Oh.
might be because you have a problem with your liver with absorption. And
Okay.
two possible things which could help with that would be just magnesium could help your liver absorb it better. And the thing is, when they mentioned that, I'm like, I've also been a light drinker for a long time. Maybe it has to do something with my liver being weak or some compound missing that makes it harder to metabolize things properly.
Mhm.
So who knows? I'll find out. We couldn't make any conclusions until the tests come in. So like there's so many problems with anxiety that probably could be caused by diet and what you're taking in, and you can always take in something
Absolutely.
that can help you. And what I'm trying to connect this with is a small level of hallucinogen, very controlled with a mentor character, could, with knowing your demons and knowing what you're going to do when you're on them and going, don't be afraid, and training for that could help people increase their consciousness. It's already happening where there are mushroom supplements for coffees.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Just like how we went from the ages where everything had alcohol in it to where everything had coffee and a stimulant. We
Yeah.
could go to an age where we do a tiny little bit of hallucinogens to get a little bit more conscious and bring down the fear. Because that was one other thing I noticed was I can see why it's illegal. When I watched walking through a rich neighborhood, I was like, oh, I could rob that house because there's no fear. Because there's no fear. But I'm like, well, I have everything I need to get what I need done, so I wouldn't need to, and I wouldn't risk it. Like that would be stupid. But it's like it's an intrusive thought I never had before because I'd shut it down because I'd be afraid because I'd be like, I'm too important. It would be me in the past. Now I'm like, I don't care. I know it's crazy, but I can see why it's illegal. We don't have the society doesn't have the level of consciousness to control it. Like I've talked to people who are like on LSD and they're just like, anything's possible. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, you're not functional. You're not functional. You think anything like you're not functional in this state. Like I don't drink more than one drink now. Like I'm cold turkey. I'm happy and I don't need it. I don't feel a lot of anxiety. I rarely feel anxiety at all. Like talking to strangers. That's great. But yeah. So one thing I'd like to change subject to, though, is something I really have to give you kudos to, Felix, putting me onto meditation.
Oh yeah.
Putting me onto meditation. I did it for 30 minutes, even just yesterday, and I had some stuff in the wash. I was about to go dancing. I was just like, and my timer went off, and I'm like, I want to go farther. I want to do longer. Like it's so good. I was like, I want to go back there. And just that you told me to, I just want to tell other people. You told me to. You said you should do it. You did a gentle nudge. Sorry, I'm being masculine D. You told me to. You made me do it. But
I remember I was very feminine, but I mentioned it. I said that I was doing it, that I wanted to go back to it, that I had like lots of good things came from it, but I usually refrain of telling people what they should and shouldn't do because I think it should come from the inside, and this is my family way. But yeah, please continue. But I was really surprised with your, because I think I just mentioned it, and with your very positive reaction after that. So please continue. and tell the people what they
So
should do.
here's what I will tell everyone.
Yeah.
When I was microdosing, I started seeing colors on or off it. I saw extra colors everywhere, around people, around buildings, around machines.
Like
And when I
auras.
had my crash, it went away. I know this is crazy talk, right? But let me I will try to ground it in something a little bit more scientific, right? So I started seeing colors around people. It started with a friend just going, "Hey, what color am I?" And I look at their friend, I'm like, "You're a little purple." They're like, "I've been purple for a long time." I'm like, I don't know if I believe this. And then as I was singing, I was like, wow, my brain just be wiring up to see what emotions I perceive as colors. Like, that's weird. Like, on or off. That was the weirdest part. On or off them. And when I had my crash, I swore it all off. I was like, I'm crazy. I can't trust this. This has led me off a cliff. I was interpreting the colors, right? I know this is crazy, but after meditating on the water for 15 minutes, on Christmas Day after my December 15th crash, around my family, I started seeing them again with no input. I started seeing it all again. And I was like, wow, this is incredibly beautiful. Like, you just see a color around them. And I'm like, I'm interpreting the emotions I see. So it's like, if I saw my family member eating, I'd see them turn or like a little bit of orange show up, because the color of orange is the color of desire and consumption and eating stuff. Like, and it relates to the color spectrum and the shock. And I was like, I read about the chakras, and my brain must be rewiring this synesthesia up. It's a form of synesthesia. Like, someone could have a synesthesia that they associate a number with a color. You could also have a synesthesia where you associate an emotion with a color. And emotions actually are associated with colors. They are used in advertising to communicate things. And I learned this, and I have to give kudos. I showed you this before, to Anna Arsenault, my last interview, the UTX designer. She designed my business cards. They didn't come through full the way. They're supposed to be a bit deeper, but it was an eye-opening experience, saying I had this experience with seeing these colors, and I want it to be this way. And she's like, well, that doesn't work. Those colors conflict. And I told her the stuff about the auras, and she designed this card for me. Now, it's not exactly how it's supposed to be, but and we'll get some new ones then. But like, I will tell you this, man, and Holly, man and woman, I went to a creek. I went to a prairie preserve. So it's just grassland. And I broke down crying. And this was after everything. This was after Christmas, because all it is it just looks like dead grass. It's just boring, the most boring environment you can imagine. You're like, that's boring Nebraska, rolling grass, just wood and quail and brown. Every shadow was blue. Every brown was red. And like, there was green throughout all the blades of grass that were all tan, dead. And I just cried, and I said, I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to see things this way. And I was like, well, this is a gift. You know what this relates back to is just, there's scientific studies on, if you're depressed, colors become muted.
Mhm.
Yep.
And if you're happy, colors become brighter. And it just feels like that's all that's happening. I'm in a happier state, and colors are brighter. I see what I see. I don't try to overinterpret them. There's nothing to do with destiny. There's no meaning in this. This is just extra beauty everywhere. And I feel like a crazy person. I acknowledge that. But Felix, I suggest you try opening your third eye right there. Right there. If you're a purple man, I'm using a filter actually right now. Can you see a color around me? Can you see a color around me, Felix?
No.
Okay. Then don't worry about it.
But what's our color then? Does this work over the internet?
Yeah, it works with some picture, but it's like just the emotion I see.
Okay.
You have some purple lighting in the background. It might throw me off a little bit.
Sure. The purple and gold, yeah.
Purple and gold. Oh, are those your two favorite colors?
No, I'd rather go with something like wine red.
Yeah. Oh, red?
Yeah.
A red? Okay. Well, that would make sense with ST. Like, that's why I'm trying to communicate, like, relate it to. I'm like, you're red, grounding, the base, like reality, red.
But I think I mentioned that I did Dr. K's Guide to Meditation.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, and I find him personally very fascinating because he is both schooled in classic Western medicine, just doing like hard science, but also he went to Asia, spent some time in India, and I think Korea and Japan to study meditation there. So he's also very knowledgeable about Eastern philosophy and kind of their kind of science, so to speak. And in everything he teaches on his channel, but also in his meditation course, he talks about all these things. So he talks about scientific studies on meditation, what it does to like our hormone production, our autonomic nervous system, our central nervous system. But he also talks about chakras. And he, yeah.
Let's put a caveat on chakras.
Yeah.
So
he
I
does
talked
it
to
too.
Benjamin about this, and Benjamin was like, "Well, they can't be real because the ancient texts say there are 12, and now they say there are 7." It seems to be, it will wire up to what you believe. It's simple as that.
I was thinking about it in the same way, actually. Yeah. So he talks about chakras, but he qualifies it in a similar way, that there's no proper Western style scientific evidence that these things exist. And so there's specific chakra meditations that you can do, where you, for example, focus on the base of the spine for grounding, or on the third eye chakra that you also already mentioned for intuition. And these kinds of meditations are no worse than other kinds of meditation in clinical, with clinical results.
Worse?
Are no worse or better.
Yeah, okay. Cool.
So this is how he talks about it. So there's clinical evidence that meditation is good for you, that has really positive effects on a lot of people, not necessarily everybody, but it's a good practice. And if you use a chakra meditation instead of maybe Zen awareness meditation, it also has similar positive effects. So this is how he justifies it, using it as clinical practice. So you can't just safely do it and try it and see what happens. And because there are these 7 chakras that have a certain place in your body, there's no scientific evidence that there's something there, but they symbolize certain things like grounding, but also like digestion or taking in information. Another thing that is good for building a business is the throat chakra, because that's about your voice, and your voice is the main tool to have impact on the external world. So there are practices for that, to meditate on your throat chakra, but then of course the third eye, opening it for intuition. And maybe it really comes down to what you believe, that you believe that if meditating on the throat chakra and doing like something with a humming sound actually helps you improve your voice, that this belief leads to positive results in reality.
So no, like absolutely. And whatever works for you works for you. I mean, I love meditating in the sunlight. But the thing is that I started doing that. And then once I looked, like I read the chakra stuff, it said for each chakra, like what to do. So blue might be like reaching out to people, telling the truth, speaking the truth. But for the intuition, it was be in the sun. And then whenever I'm in the sun, I see more. Or even when I just try and do good deeds, like a good deed for someone else, like shoveling, charity, like this is the stuff that like shoveling, the ST was just like, I hate this, I'm so grumpy. And I'm like looking at the snow and I see these like bands. I'm like, wow, it's so beautiful. I know it's nuts. But I just will relate it to a form of synesthesia. And what's also crazy is even just last night, I had a friend who I met at dancing, who I'd been kind of on off with, and I was doing tarot readings, and I go, she's like, "What color are you?" And I'm like, "I can't see your color." And she goes, "What color are you?" And I go, "Guess." And she goes, "I see red over one shoulder and blue over the other." And I'm like, "Oh, you actually see it?" She's like, "I don't trust this." I'm like, and we start pointing at people like, "What do you think they are?" And they're like, "Oh, I see red and blue." And I was like, "I see purple." Well, those go together. It's like, and we're kind of trying to triangulate, but it's not objective. It's subjective. It is absolutely I'm so sorry for talking about fucking oracles, guys. I am so, and I shouldn't curse. No cursing. But Felix, I'd like to give you some homework for meditation. If you have your eyes closed, look for some color. Look for some color when your eyes are closed. If you see anything, and start focusing on that, and just see if it does anything. If you see any extra color, probably like an indigo dot, focus on that. Try and keep it centered. If you see colors moving off to the side, just focus straight forward. That's all.
Have you ever tried? Okay, I will try that. There are like what you recommending reminds me of like certain kinds of meditations that work with
Mhm.
it. Have you tried meditating on candlelight or using a yantra? Because I haven't yet, but it's something that Dr. K talks about that I want to try.
What's a yantra?
Okay, what is a yantra?
So yantra is a symbol of power, essentially, a specific symbol. This is part of yoga, like where you have the mantra where you repeat a word, and a yantra is just something visual, like a visual aid for meditation. And it's he shows like one example in his course, but I think there are several, and it's just this kind of pattern where you have like several kinds of rings. That it starts with flower petals, then you have different colored triangles that come together to like one triangle in the middle.
Wait, you see this?
Yeah, you
Or
know,
is-
you use this. This is a tool. You have this
yes.
symbol, yeah, that you can just print out or use your iPad. Like, and he shows this in his course. Like, I did a screenshot, everything. It's sense. I'm talking about sensory stuff right now. But
Yeah.
this is how it begins. That you use this picture, and then you focus on different parts of it in the first phase of the meditation. That you look at the point in the middle, but you start paying attention to the outside and then going in and out and in and out until it kind of creates a real mental picture. And then you close your eyes and try to keep this picture of the yantra on the screen of your eyes.
Oh,
And then
okay.
it's kind of this balancing act between kind of letting go and not forcing it, right? Because the more you focus on it, the easier it might vanish. So let go, but keep your awareness of it. And you can do this with this yantra, and I think they have different symbolic meanings. Because like the old like tantric yogis really use these practices to kind of increase their willpower and create the life that they want. So it was really a system for them to kind of gain more power in some sense. But you can also do something similar with a candlelight, where you meditate on a candlelight, where you try to look at it as long as possible without blinking, and then you close your eyes in the second phase and keep the image of the candlelight like on the screen of your eyelids, so to speak. And then again, try to have this balancing act of focus to keep it there as long as possible.
Yeah, I did have something similar to that where I was meditating here in this basement for an hour, and for 10 minutes I was like, I can't keep my eyes closing longer. So there's a pattern on the ceiling that's kind of like a splotch pattern, that's sponge pattern, where it's like a little like pointy. And I just looked for a point to look at, and I looked for 10 minutes, and it's like it started turning blue, and you start noticing everything as you're just staring at one point for 10 minutes. Like the wall starts moving, it's just like shaking, and you're like keeping attention, keep your focus, just staring straight forward. But I've noticed that like how I kind of conceptualize the meditation is like being in the dark. It's like taking a dip, and focusing so much and emptying your mind so much. Like when you have thoughts or feelings or fantasies that you're like, it's like a fantasy's coming, a thought's coming, and it's like I start to just realize I'm like, I'm so much more productive when I do this. I should do it in the morning, every morning. When I do it at night, I feel so happy. I can meditate and then have my intention be, I want to sleep well, and I fall asleep quicker. It's like if you're religious, you can also use it. You can do both, where you say prayers during it, but you have to ask for the right things. You don't ask God, give me a hot wife and a nice car and blah blah blah. You go like open my heart to love, like send a lot of love my way, open my heart to it, send a lot of love my way. And it's like, because you've set that intention, you're open to it, so it starts happening because you're letting it in, because there were all these opportunities that you said no to, all the time. But yeah, sometimes I'll be driving and I'll be like, God grant me focus, and I'll just like things will sharpen. Like you're just saying it out loud, and you're like setting your intention. You're telling your brain to do it. You're commanding yourself.
Yeah, right. You're commanding your mind kind of to do it, which is technically not yourself, but a tool that you have, but that you need to learn to use well, right? And everybody knows this, where we want to focus on something, but the mind goes this way and that way, has all kinds of other thoughts, and you can't focus on the task at hand. And meditation is a tool, a practice, like how you described, that helps you do that, and that makes you able to make the mind do what you want it to do right now.
Have Dave and Shan talked about meditation at all? I know Dave made fun of Jerry Seinfeld for doing sleep energy, and he says he's doing sleep energy, but he says he's doing meditation, but he's just doing sleep energy. Ha ha ha. I'm like, no, meditation is kind of real. We might be the sleep, so we might be the people who get there first. But I think the benefits are there for everyone. My sleep is better. Sometimes I can get less sleep and still be just as alert, and don't feel like I can get 4 hours of sleep sometimes and feel just as alert. It's just the focus and clarity is just so much increased. I think everyone should do it. I really do.
Yeah, so Shan and Dave talked a little bit about it in the past in a couple of Q&As, but also in celebrity classes. It's sleep energy, and the sleeps just tend to do it or want to do it, just they resonate with it, but it can be especially beneficial if you have sleep last. But I don't really think it's sleep energy. I think it's essentially a layer above that, because like when we do sleep, it's something compulsive, right? It's something that we naturally do, but it's not necessarily being aware, because you do it just automatic, right? Like how others do play, because sometimes, or quite often, the right thing to do is to pay attention to the outside world right now. When you're talking, my job is to listen to you and take it in. But my sleep always pulls me in, right, in this compulsive manner. So doing the sleep can be a state of non-awareness for me, actually. And to me, meditation is rather this practice of being aware where your mind puts the attention. Is it on your inside, where my mind wants to go? Is it on the outside, where it sometimes really should go to actually navigate the world well right now? And so it's rather being aware of, is your mind doing sleep? Is your mind doing play? So kind of like one level higher.
Yeah. Well, it also Shan said something about consciousness being like when the brain scans kind of notice that it's kind of like in the back, or I'm not sure what she said. She's like, it's not up here. Well, or it's like it's what you're shaking your head.
I don't know. I just remember something that also Dr. K presents like for the scientific studies, that there are like different systems in our central nervous system that govern emotions and that govern thought. And then meditation helps you improve kind of the control of your frontal lobe. And so you have kind of more control through your thoughts, but not in a way that suppresses emotion. The emotions are still there. You don't want them to vanish. You don't want to suppress them at all, but you don't want to identify with them. You want to experience them, but actually be able to understand them and put them into context without getting kind of sucked into them. And meditation can help you with that. And I think through rather strengthening the frontal lobe of your brain.
Wow. That's well, I imagine it's something to do with the communication, but all the stuff I ran off with getting to where I am on meditation. So you mentioned my Instagram that I did, what was it, 20 minutes at negative something degrees with the shirt, like with coat on. But I did another recording that was 20 minutes with no shirt on at 3 degrees Fahrenheit. And I didn't feel anything. And I did Wim Hof breathing before. I just did the beginner thing. So, and I was talking to you before we got on that I think what the breathing method does is it gets you into a meditative state where you're happy. And you're focusing so much on the breathing that you're not having all these monkey brain and external thoughts like jumping around, that you are bringing yourself into a meditative state where you're mind body connecting. I will tell you, the only thing that felt a little chilly was just the breeze on me at 3 degrees. So I mentioned this before, though. I think maybe we do one round of Wim Hof breathing. We all do that together. Come on, I think it should take 3 minutes. Come on.
I'm just gonna watch you guys.
No, come on. Oh, okay.
The Wim Hof breathing freaks me out.
Why?
I've seen Felix do it.
I guess I do it in a dream.
He looks too intense. He looks like he's, I don't know, like I know he's hyperventilating. I know that's kind of the point, but I don't know. It just weirds me out seeing him do it.
I think it'd be good for you. Come on. Pretty please. Do it for the fans.
Do it for
no one wants to see me do this.
Yes, we
Like,
do. We all want to see you do it, Holly.
where is the chat active? Can we see comments? Like, does the tribe actually
Sammy
want
says
to do
she'll
it?
do it. I know. Sammy says she'll do it with us. So Sammy will do it. Holly, you can't do it. The tribe is good. Do we need to get how many people do we need to get to? No,
We get peer pressured by the tribe, aren't
I'm sorry.
Great.
I apologize. Okay, me and Felix will do it. But you should do at least like 3 with us.
3 what?
3 in and outs. Just 3.
Okay.
Okay, but I have to say, like, so I did the Wim Hof basic online course years ago, and I did one advanced workshop in Cologne with a Wim Hof instructor, not with Wim Hof in person, just with one of his many, many instructors, and doing it in a group setting led by, someone trained in this method made the whole thing more intense. Like, I got to a level of kind of excitement and focus, or maybe not focus, but just the intensity of experience was something that I couldn't reach on my own.
Yeah. Well, my first time doing it, I didn't feel much. And my friend was like messaging me, like, did it feel ecstatic? And I was like, no, I was just doing it for the cold, because I kind of just started trying to do the breathing when it was like, it gets really cold here in Nebraska. Like, it really cold. And it always bites people, and everyone always gets depressed and indoors. And I was just like, I'm not letting that happen. I need my night walks for sleep. I need all this stuff. So like, I'd be breathing in like 0 degrees, and like I could just feel my nostrils freezing, but it's still like, I'm like, I know you're supposed to breathe in through your nose, not through your mouth, because it filters it through your sinuses. Like, there's a whole
In general, yes.
So okay, let's do 30.
Okay, but should we do some ST here, so the people know what's going on, they know what we'll do, and people can actually follow along. So, but like the thing with the cold is, this is something I experienced too before we start, that my kind of like how I experienced the cold changed, because we usually in Germany had like 1, 2, 3 weeks where it got really cold, like below freezing, and I hated going out, especially at night. Just going 15 minutes to the office felt like torture. And then after I started Wim Hof breathing, after I started doing cold showers on a regular basis, that stopped. I was fine. And it wasn't like I couldn't feel the cold at all, but I just felt it on the skin. Like, okay, I know there is cold around me, but it didn't cut through me anymore.
Yeah, and it just doesn't feel like it's biting into you anymore.
Yeah, it's just, okay, it's cold around me. Sure. Whatever, like, let me just do what I want to do. And I'm just completely, also like very emotionally accepting of it. It's just how it is. Like, my inner thermostat is not changing here.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like you're changing your perception of reality.
Yeah. So, but like with the breathing, like a warning, like, never do this in water. Like, this is like, seriously, like, people died doing this kind of stuff because they did it in the bathtub, because there is like, what you do controlled hyperventilation, and then you hold your breath. And in this phase, it can happen that your brain doesn't have enough oxygen and that you lose consciousness for a bit. This can happen, like, happened to me too, while I was sitting on the floor one time. Yes.
Oh, I look so afraid.
So
can you not do this on camera?
But it usually doesn't happen.
I'm doing it.
Please don't pass out on camera.
The point is,
okay, first of all, I've done 30 minutes. Sorry, I've done a minute and a half. Sorry. So I saw the 30. I was dyslexic. A minute and a half. We're just going to do a minute of breath holding. So less than I normally do anyway. So.
Okay.
And but then we're going to do like 1 round, proper 30 breaths. Right? We do so.
Yes,
okay, what we're going to do is like 1 round of intentional hyperventilation, where we breathe quickly about 30 times. So we breathe in and then relax and do that quickly. You can breathe in through your nose, you can breathe in through your mouth. For that, usually don't breathe in through your mouth, please. And then afterwards, we're going to let the air out and then hold the breath for usually as long as we can, as long as we feel comfortable, but you should not force it.
Yeah.
And then there's like 1 additional breath hold to kind of balance yourself out for 15 seconds, and that's the 3rd phase, and then we're done.
Yeah,
that's how it works, but just follow along. Do you want to go do like a start sign or something?
My hands are sweating.
Mine too. Oh my gosh, we have so much in common.
I'm nervous.
Nothing's gonna
nervous.
happen.
I don't want anything to happen to you guys.
No, nothing's gonna happen.
Well, we'll get
It looks
through it,
like-
and then you'll know that nothing will happen to us. Or, I'll just evaporate, out of this body. Be enlightened.
Yeah, exactly.
You
We,
just
I
be a
should talked about that.
we attain
And that's the
enlightenment.
bullshit.
Okay.
Okay. I will do the counting on my hands.
Yeah.
So, okay. We're going to do 30, and I will then set the timer for the breath hold on my watch, okay?
Yeah, if you want to, but usually just everyone holds their breath as long as they feel comfortable.
I think we just do a minute. I think that's
Okay,
safe
sure.
because But like my first time I did the breath hold, I was like accidentally forgot because I was just in such a just went back into breathing. I'm like, oh wait, hold your breath. Okay. On 3, 2, 1. I'm not counting right. Are you counting?
About 10.
I'll just tell us to do the breath hold when I feel like
it.
You're right. This is weird.
I knew it would be.
I can do it the way Felix does it. I should just shut
One.
up.
And hold. Okay, I hope that was entertaining for everyone.
That was
I
so
hope so.
weird.
Okay, I will say Felix does it kind of weird. I did it in through the nose, like that. So I was like, no, wait. Felix knows what he's doing. I have to do it like him. And I was like, this does look weird.
It freaks me out. Yeah.
That's
You look
good
like
for
you're dying.
We are dying. We're going into the NF.
Oh,
That's
jeez.
basically just astral projecting.
No.
I will say all the colors have gotten deeper, like from that. Oh, like it's intense.
I feel
the
the high right
blues
now.
are bluer. The blues on our names are just like they're popping out. They're weird.
What about Heli Short? No popping?
I mean, no. The names
Oh,
are
yeah.
more intense. You're hiding your auras from me. Don't hide them. Show them, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one way it seems to work. Is if people don't want you to see it, it's harder to see it.
That's
Like,
interesting.
I've been like, I can't see you, and I realize I'm like, oh, they're nervous and they don't want me to, and it's a vulnerable thing, and they don't want. Like, you know what I think of is I think of like, you know the saying like, oh, he showed his true colors. It's like, wait, were there some shamans back in the day who were like seeing colors and they're like, he showed it, he said he was a blue, and then we saw he was a red.
Yeah, there's probably something in it which just in our psyche how we interpret colors, and I think these sayings are there for a reason. Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's anything to be afraid of if you're not seeing shit and hearing hearing voices and stuff. I think it's just a form of like synesthesia that you're just what emotions are you saying? You know, but it's very interesting because sometimes it will weirdly. Sometimes you're like your favorite colors are green, blue, and purple, and they're like, that's weird. My favorite colors are green, blue, and purple. Like, how did you get that specific? I was like, that's what I saw.
There's a guy I work with who did his master's degree on like the psychology of color as it relates to hazard notice boards. So he does like natural disaster event notice boards and all the colors that they use and like how it impacts your mind and how you interpret the colors. And because of course, like when there's say a tsunami or something, you're going to look at this notice board and you're going to be like, okay, what the hell do I need to do? So what colors are going to be most effective for you in that moment? Yeah. And like he did his whole master's on that, and it sounded pretty fascinating. So like the psychology of color is definitely a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I used to be like observer and be like, in my fantasy book, the colors in the advertising are going to be used to manipulate people, and the colors are bad. And I was like, I'm like, now I've like gotten through so many observer fears about these big things. I'm just like, no, the colors are beautiful, and they're just using it for advertising. Like, what's the big deal? Like, silly old me, you know. But yeah, it's absolutely fascinating and beautiful, and life's beautiful. Yeah, I just want to share it with people. Like, that's where I'm at. But the last thing I kind of want to ask about is just I'm kind of curious about. I know this is a one thing to ask, but like about like the goals, like where are your guys' goals going? I know we've talked about this where you're like you want to be there for people in OP and coaching, but like, do you have an A to Z on how to build those skills, or where do you see it going in the near future, and how are you building on those things?
Yeah, do we want to embed that into a larger discussion around social types? Because this was very much connected to us starting out on this path.
Yeah, we just oh, do you mean for a different video, or do you want to keep talking?
No. No. For now,
social types. Actually, I'd love to transition to the social types. Yes.
I mean, just because, that's what I mean. Just transitioning to that topic because it's very much connected to that and what started us on our path, and also how we kind of approach this thing like through our social types.
Yes. Okay.
Do you want to start?
Yeah. No, you go ahead.
I go because I talked so much about meditation.
No, it's fine.
Okay, so maybe let's talk about a little bit about the social types, because we and then lead into the question that you actually asked.
Yeah. Ready for a fist fight? Yeah, that's normal, Sammy. That's normal.
Fist fight, a run. Yeah. It's good to do that actually before exercise, something like that, like a breathing practice that is fast, that brings you up. Yeah, puts you in this fight or flight state for sure.
Ooh, that makes sense. I need to use that. So. Yeah, but back to social type.
Yeah. Sorry. So we got our social types back in March. So we've been processing for quite a while now. So I got social type as a number 2, Holly as a number 3. And it just explained a lot for us, kind of where we want to go, what we kind of desire, how we want to live our life, but also especially in the past, how we struggled and kind of clashed with our previous experience. And it really brought us clarity on kind of what we want in life and kind of the kind of life we want to live. And I think this is why social types are so incredibly powerful. Because they essentially categorize, like in 4 buckets, the kind of life you want to lead, right? In the way that kind of it's really from a selfish perspective. If you know your social type and if you build a life based on the social type in a way, or like use that as a map in your life, then you'll create a life that you'll be happier with. And it's good to know like what you want and what you don't want. Yeah. And for me as a number 2, I think what was always driving me, what I just didn't understand in the past, this a need to like have larger impact in some form. And also I really enjoy being in some kind of teaching role. And what it led me down to early on was a path of becoming a scientist, because I saw that as a vehicle for just creating a better future through research, through maybe new technology, I didn't quite know. So I studied mathematics for 5 years, then became a researcher in mathematics, did my PhD. And so I became a proper specialist in that, but with the goal of larger impact. But what I actually then chose to do, because I really didn't understand myself fully, boxed me into a specialist role. And I felt very unmotivated, very unfulfilled, not like clinically depressed, but just unhappy in this position. Although I was doing like what I thought I wanted to do for a long, long time since I was a kid. But what really made me happy as part of my job as a researcher and teaching assistant at the university was just being the teacher, like teaching the younger people than me about mathematics. And I saw this as something extremely valuable, and I loved doing it, and I got good feedback because of it. And like I didn't know I was blast last. It was just a position I was kind of pushed into as a student, kind of early on as a third-year bachelor student, because everyone was doing it. Like the technical university relied on the math students to teach math to the younger students, and like of all kinds of fields that are connected to mathematics. And it really kind of like I lucked into being forced to do my demons with the blast. And this was just huge for my own personal growth and just gave me a real sense of fulfillment. And getting my social type gave me clarity on that, and gave me clarity that, okay, I want to have this kind of future. Like I want to build my own business. I want to be independent. I want to be autonomous, and I want to teach, and I want to help people. And I need to find a way to build that. And it feels like OP and other things, including meditation, gives me the tools and also let me build the confidence that I can do it over time. And you talked about like kind of different tiers that you want to work yourself up. And this is really how I see it, that like I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't have my own business. I'm not completely autonomous. Like I work as a data analyst and software developer at a government organization. I have kind of a really specialist job still. But what makes me now incredibly happy and fulfilled is that I build the life and the kind of job or the career that I want, that I actually put action towards it, that I'm not the entrepreneur, that I'm not completely autonomous, but I'm on a path to building that, and I actually take action step on that path. And I think this can make just a huge change and shift in your mindset, that you have the confidence that you can go on this path, but that you actually have to walk it. So it's not enough to imagine it, understand it. This is what you need to do first, so you have the sense of direction, but actually putting action into it creates just a great sense of peace and fulfillment. And so what we want to do with Practical Personality, we want to build, like in the next couple of years, a life coaching business that is OPS infused. So use OPS to kind of inform, like through social types, for example, to help people find their purpose and to help people see, okay, these are the needs you have in a certain order, and you need to prioritize them in this order to help them, for example, with that. But then also see, okay, you are this type, so you have certain kinds of blindnesses. So on your goal that you set for yourself, you will have these hurdles, but you can also learn to overcome them if you do your last animal, for example. And this is the kind of life coaching we're envisioning that we want to go to, and essentially help people find a life of purpose, help them, coach them to create a life that they want. So in a way, it is mental health connected, but just not for a clinical sense, but for people who are already healthy, who are maybe a bit lost, maybe unfocused, and don't know, and need just some support on the way. And yeah, we want to do that with life coaching in general, with maybe other kinds of modalities like CBT, but also use this very much OPS informed.
Yeah, because as we were talking about language earlier, we want to sort of do it in such a way that we're using language that anyone can understand. We're not going to be specifically talking about OP, but we're going to be, as Felix said, sort of using OP as sort of a tool to give us something to work towards or target when it comes to people, so we can actually, I guess, help people apply the lessons that we're trying to teach, but we won't be specifically using OP language, because a lot of people outside of OP would have no idea what we're talking about, and that would really box us in.
Yeah, well, it depends. Right.
Well, I think if we could simplify it down, the best, like, who knows, but here's just throwing out a guess, is like if you could just simplify it down to the temperaments and the animals, and someone knows like my temperament is this, it means my weakness is this, and my last animal is this. Like those are my pain points. And the thing is you were mentioning Tony Robbins and this weird archetypes. I'm like, those are just the temperaments. That's just NFST, kind of like similar. They're kind of putting them in that. And like people can understand those concepts. But I think there is an issue kind of in the community right now with life coaching, which is like the mentality of a lot of life coaches is I'm going to train people in the community. And if you look at kind of how the setup of that is, it's Dave and Shan's little YouTube channel is the only thing casting the net, and that your base is just this small group of people, and maybe they need help and maybe they don't, or maybe they're figuring it out here or somewhere else. And it's just very niche. So I think it's just the advice I'm taking myself is like, I'd love to life coach people as a skill. And if I had them in my clutches, I'd say, hey, go get typed by Dave and Shan here. Like here's a discount or something, and we'll just send you in, and I'll have the little printout and I will give you the advice. Because it's you don't need all this information. You don't need to understand it. You don't need to understand it all, but you need to understand, hey, you're blast last, and I need to like drill you down on this. Like if you're blast last, you need to know your blast last. If you're ST last, you need to know your ST last, like stuff like that. And really just like get them where like you can really like catch them while they're talking. Infuse it into them and like you're caught. I know what you're up to, buddy. You can't hide it from me. But you kind of like I said with OP being antisocial, like I kind of had to purge OP thought and OP language from my mind to make friends and be pro-social with people, because it's just like it was all I could think of. Like, no, I need to explain this. No, I need to explain this. And it's like people watched me transform because I just stopped talking on that wavelength. Not that I don't think about it. Like I realize I'm an NF crazy person every day and blast last and all this stuff. But yeah, I think that is kind of like the next step is people in OP doing stuff outside of OP to bring it back into OP, because we know it helped us. We know it guided us down the path, and we have gratitude and we want to give back to it, you know? Absolutely. So Holly, I'm curious about like your path on, we've talked about like it being a contradiction for you.
Yeah.
Being play first and then a 3. And it's like, it's so funny because like I see, regardless of the 3, how do I put it? I don't mean to be mean, but the lazy friend of I just like, it's like if we do my job, like I love Anna. Anna's a 3, and Anna is a great artist. Like I think of Tolkien as kind of a 3, and I aspire to be like Tolkien, but I'm not a true Tolkien. Like I know I have to do it in like a manager, like get some ghostwriters to do it, sort of thing, or production and all that stuff. But like the 3s like are like, I want to do my job and we'll be friends if you help me do my specialist job. But sometimes like when I talk about hanging out with 3s, I'm like, oh my God, you're so lazy. You're such a lazy friend. It comes up so much. But I don't say anything because I'm just like, I respect the craft.
Yeah.
So, but what is it like for you with the contradiction of, because that lazy friend is kind of like play last, and then your lead play.
Yeah. I think like when it comes to friends for me, like I like having friends. Like I've got good friends who I really enjoy spending time with. But see, this is where I thought that it was a TE thing, because I was like, well, I want few friends, like few good friends, but then we also need to be doing something together.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was TE, but that is actually more the number 3, the more specialist thing. Like a lot of my friends I met through work or through university.
Yeah.
So like we had similar interests, we were doing similar things, and that kind of created the connection. And then now when we catch up, we're either talking about work or about university studies or things like that. So that's kind of the common link that we have there. And I kind of find that also being an adult, it's more difficult to make new friends. Like it's better in having
Possible.
a community like OP that makes it easier to make friends because you've got a common interest there. But like just out in the normal world, it's much harder to meet people.
Well, there is a trend that I grabbed onto, which was a thing called Silent Book Club, and
Okay.
it's where you show up, you mingle for an hour, and then you read for like an hour and a half or however long, and then you optionally mingle at the end. But you all just sit there in silence and read, right?
Okay.
And so you're kind of bridging that we're in this age of consume of looking down at your phone. Like your phone is your specialized consume. It's like OP. How the hell do you communicate what's on your phone to someone else without being just completely boring? But if you have a book and you're like, we both came with different books. We sat down, maybe we have similar books, and I can ask you about your book at the end. It actually gives you a fighting chance. So I heard about these book clubs. They were sold out in my city. The places that they were packed from back to front. So the cafe I hang out at, I messaged the owner. I'm like, hey, these things are selling out. You want to try this? And he's like, next day he was like, done. We have it now. So now I call it my accidental book club I started. So now when I walk around, I'm like, hey, you want to join my book club? So that's the thing about talking about it's hard to meet people. Like you're preaching to the choir. Like I used to like have the hardest time meeting people. I used to not leave the house. Now I'm like creating the community, creating it out of like thin air is then you just get a lot more surface area, a lot more traction, and taking up that responsibility. But like it's in something that you care about,
So but I also found being a number 3 kind of gives me a slightly more introverted edge as well. So then I kind of struggle with I've been at work all week. I've been like dealing with people all week at work, and then it comes to the weekend, and I just want to work on our business stuff. I don't want to then have to go and do the social thing. So that's kind of what I battle with. And like even catching up with like my real life friends, it has been difficult, honestly, to balance that, to actually make sure I make time to hang out with my friends, because it's so easy for me to be like, I'd much rather just stay home and do these other things. But as you know, you need that human connection. You need those relationships, and you feel so much better once you do it. But it's sometimes just getting out and doing it is the hard part.
Exactly that. I mean, some of Dave's advice that I saw that he was sharing with people was like, for whatever social type you are, it will really help you out to go spend your time in the other world.
Yeah.
And that saved my life. Not that he said that to me, but like I kind of intuitively knew that. I went, that's a tool for me to use. The friends tool is a tool for me to pick up. Like, why am I not getting traction? No friends. And it saved my life. It saved my life. I say like I'd be homeless on the run in a different state, and my family wouldn't be talking to me if I didn't have friends who were giving me good advice.
Yeah.
And we weren't communicating. It's like friends saved my life. So I'm gonna respect those friends. But I really just spent like 6 months just bumming out in a cafe, just bumming out with the fours, just be like, yes, tell me about Animal Crossing. Tell me about your game. Tell me about the video game you played last night. Let's talk about your chakras. Oh yeah. Just like instead of being like, hey man, we have to talk about my story, my book, my mission. Like I just gave up. I just gave up doing that. And it saved my life. And now I'm like, oh, it's time to motor. But like for it seems like I don't know, like that's my experience. It saved my life. Like how does friends and responsibility like save your life? Like not save your life. Maybe I'm being over dramatic. We'll save your life one day.
I think it's been really helpful to be living with Felix's responsibility first, because before I got typed, I had no idea that I was responsibility last. I mean,
you could generalize last.
Yeah, so I guess the archetype of the specialist is like the craftsman, right? Like they've got this one thing that they're really good at, and that's all they spend their time doing. And I was like, oh, I don't have that. My saviors keep screwing me over, and making it so that I can't narrow down on something because I just want to skip off onto the next thing. I stay with something for a small amount of time and then I'm like, oh, new shiny thing over there, and go and look at that. And then also having, if I last, I don't know what I want to spend my time doing. So that's also been like a whole thing in itself to figure out. And so for the longest time, I was like, how am I number 3? I must be the worst number 3 because I can't specialize. But that, what I realized was what I actually was desiring. Like I was comparing myself, to the specialists and being like, that's what I want to be like. So that was my desire, which I wasn't meeting because I was just letting my saviors go off in all directions. So,
well, I have had a friend who is a specialist, and I'll like kind of see the specialist talking, and they'll be talking about the managers, and they'll be talking about like, well, so and so reached out to me about this job, and they were offering this much money, which was like this much increase on what, but they made me jump through hoops. And I'm like, they like, do you understand why they want you to jump through hoops to apply for the job? Like, because if you're gonna tap out, then you're gonna, when they ask you to do something extra, you're always gonna tap out. And then, but they're always asking me to do extra and not giving me more. And I'm like, that is a problem. Like, I don't want to see you abused by your job. Like, I don't want you to see. But how do you like? I hate to see those people who have everything thrown on them and then they don't get the manager role. But often they have a bad attitude about it. They're like complaining. They're always complaining about, they're making me do this extra thing. Like, yeah. It's just complaining. But my problem was that I wanted to specialize to get a skill. Like I wouldn't sit still enough. I keep jumping jobs, you know?
Yeah.
Which you do get skills when you're at a job for a year, but
you do, but you don't really stay there long enough to like really hone in those skills and develop them. You kind of just get like, I don't know, like a kind of broad understanding of how it works, and then you move on to something else, and so you become like a jack of all trades rather than like a master of something.
Well, that's what I am, the jack of all trades, of course.
The magician of all trades.
But I imagine though that you guys being a 2 and a 3 is kind of the opposites attracting kind of thing for you guys, because you are both deciders and thinkery and all that stuff, and it's kind of the social coin. That's kind of where your opposites attracting. I'm kind of imagining that. Where you guys,
what we kind of worked out, well, at least, so I knew that I was always attracted to ambitious people, like people who had their shit together, knew what they wanted, and they were working towards that. And Felix definitely has that. He's also well educated, and he's like every day he's working on his goals. Like he knows what he wants to do, and he doesn't just kind of sit there and waste time. And it's very inspiring to me, because I'm just like, oh, this is what I need to be doing. Like, in my opinion, he does specialize really well. And like when I first met him, and he was like, yes, I'm a scientist, and he had his PhD, and like, so he'd done all these things, and I was like, what? That's what I want to do. Like that's what I wish I had have done. But then to find out that he's a 2, he's done the specializing really well.
I think kind of the advice for everyone whose responsibility is kind of like I said, Layla Hermosi's skills tier list. I think that's kind of anyone who's has the generalist thing needs to just start grabbing surface knowledge of all those things, so you can apply your knowledge of science to whatever business you're doing, where you're like, I can read the data, I can interpret the data, and that can become a kind of business itself. You know, like for instance, there was a writing course I listened to where the writing guy was like, if you're here, like where most great books come from is someone who studied forensics or biology or this, and then they write about it. A lot of the great stories come from that, not from coming through the writing class, because you don't actually have knowledge about the world, right? Like from getting that special, like, what was it? There was one called was it Where the Crawdads Sing? And it was actually a book I read recently, and it was all about this woman. It was a romance, but it was about a woman in the swamp, and she knows every single type. Like the writer knew every single type, and then you look up their thing, it's like, yeah, they're a biologist, and then they decided to write a book, like from getting into that really deep into that, that they had the knowledge to do it. So mine is like psychology and religion and history and all that. And then it's like, oh, you're already generalist, but oh well. But yeah, like sales management. I think that's kind of the stuff. Dealing with people, like Felix, we're both consume sleeps. Are you talking to people in public, random people in public?
Rarely. No, I probably should do that more often.
That's who you're selling to.
Yeah,
you can find a place that filters them out, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I think you really got a point there. No, I don't. I mean, people are more talkative in New Zealand than there are in Germany, just random people in public, for sure. And it requires me to do more play. It's just more chit-chat in between, which I was taken aback by in the beginning. Now I'm a bit more used to it. But
you might also need to move where there are more malcontents, because you need some people who need help, not people who are happy.
Yeah, so what would you recommend for? So what would you recommend for like a city full of grumps who are depressed and need help?
America, anywhere in America. I'm just saying. There's a lot of people who are like, I'm a 4, I'm sad. I'm a 1, I'm sad. Like, oh, it's the whole spectrum's there, and they're all miserable because they're getting squeezed. But everywhere they're getting squeezed, I guess. Who knows? Who knows what will happen? Maybe they'll get squeezed there and they'll need you. But if they're happy, it's like the art of seduction. You can't seduce someone who's happy, who's perfectly satisfied. And what is to shorten what seduction is? Seduction is simply entering someone's spirit so that they're thinking about you when you're not there.
Entering someone's spirit.
Robert Greene said that. He's NF last. He's NT first. Not my words, his.
Wow.
I'm just saying. Seduce the masses.
I mean, this is what we're trying to do with our YouTube channel, of course.
We're not entering spirits, though.
No? Let's go. No? That's why we're doing YouTube, of course.
Start doing reels on Instagram. I don't know. Like, I'm just doing that Instagram stuff to, like, Owen Cook talks about this. He says, for me to think that you're a person who's cool that I would want to hang out with, you need to have an Instagram where you're doing interesting things. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just practicing. I'm like, yeah, I know half this is bullshit. But I'm just like keeping people up to date on my life. People are reaching out to me. But sometimes you meet people. Sometimes people reach out to you, like, I'm a fashion designer, and you just have a conversation with someone who's a fashion designer just because you're trying to create an interesting life. So have a cool life that people want to emulate. I know I'm talking NFSF stuff here, but like, that Owen Cook says it, like, it's you need to be, I don't know, enviable, like, and presenting that. I'm giving you guys the flex. I'm sorry, like, that's my job. I'm like, show off to other people so that they know to come to you, so that you can help them. Like, that's often like my advice to like the floors is like, hey, you're really good at your thing. You like Guy Linares. One of the best, had some of the best typing. I'm like, Guy, you need to talk about that and show it off so that people are like, hey, you can do it. And even like, like, you need to show off for the 4s. People need to know that the 4s got their shit together. Like,
I mean, just compare him to us. Like, we're also like higher up on these rankings. We do it on a regular basis, but we're not as good as he is. Like, he's on the top of the rankings every year. Just to give all the props to Guy.
Guy also has a partner helping him out, so he's triangulating.
But so do we. So just
exactly
same baseline in that way. But like, we are actually producing videos about typing on a regular basis. Yeah. But no, kind of the way you frame it, yes, it's a bit flexy to me. Like, I wouldn't talk about envy or anything. Like, I don't want anyone to envy me or my life. But I think
inspire them.
rather inspire, that you have to practice what you preach, because like, why should people think that I can help them if I can't help myself? Like, I need to build the life that I want for myself, and this is the first indication that I might be able to help others do the same. So, and this is what we're doing. This is what we talk about. This is what we want to kind of use for our marketing, so to speak. But yeah, and I think, and then helping others and having impact stems from there.
Well, what was it? Shane gave advice that that the twos need to spend some time being ones. Like,
Yeah, well, I guess so, because the two still have Demon Flex. I'm wondering if it's a bit offset by me being an IP, just having masculine TI at the top. But still, like, it's really interesting. And we've seen it with others, people that we typed, that we're going to talk about in future classes, who also have like double activated masculine TI like me. And when they talk about flexing or bragging, there's this feeling of, that's gross. Like, I'm not allowed to do that. Like, this is off-putting to other people, and I really have this feeling, and it can hold me back. I only have it in the middle. It's offset by TI, blah blah blah, but still I need to clearly say, okay, this is what I want to do, this is what I put my name on. I want to build this kind of life, this kind of business, and then confidently talk about it, confidently talk about what I've done in the past, what I'm currently doing, what my progress is, so others can connect to that, and which gives me the power to do actually what I want, to build this life of autonomy, to build a life where I help people have a positive impact.
Well, I do, like, 100%. The greatest glory is making other people brighter, and then working together. Like, it's like you're a bunch of atoms, and it's like, well, if I'm one atom, I'm just shaking, that does nothing. But if I get another atom moving, then we're moving together, and I get three atoms, and then I have, like, it becomes a big ripple together. Like, it's just like so much more than any individual can do. But yeah, I'm just talking about SF stuff, like, yeah. So yeah. I think we're approaching 2 hours. Is there anything else you guys would like to talk about?
Anything else? I don't know. We talked about a lot. I hope we gave people a good impression of who we are, what we're about, like what we did in the past.
And that awkward breathing.
Yeah, and some awkward breathing.
Entertaining.
But doing meditation.
It will get the people talking. You know what? One of the laws of power is court attention at all costs. The kids are gonna be going, did you see Felix and Henry doing the weird breathing? You gotta go watch that. Exactly that. Don't be afraid to make a fool of yourself.
Yeah, and some part of me saying, at all costs. Really? But
I can go find the book. It says at all costs.
No, I think like this is just my fear speaking, right? Like my fear. Oh God, I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to flex. Oh my God, it's like, no, like this is what's holding me back. Just fear of being embarrassed. Just do it. Stake your claim. Break some eggs. You'll be fine.
Exactly that.
Yeah, I think we take that off.
You will get so much more traction. Like, just not caring. You will. We all do. Yeah. We all do. We all get. I get traction.
Yeah, it's the same with the cold, right? The cold is still there. You just don't mind, right? And you will make a fool of yourself either way. Like, everyone does that. But can you just don't mind and go on?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, with that, I think I'm ready to wrap things up.
Sure.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
I've ever had.
And thank you to everyone in the comments, everyone watching.
Thank you so much.
Were there any questions that came up?
Who asked? There were a lot of. Okay. The guy asked a question earlier on. I know we all learn from people's differences. I wanted to ask Holly and Felix, what have you learned from each other's similarities? So you're both thinkers. You both consume. You're both blast last.
What have you learned from each other?
Yeah, we have a lot of coins in common, actually.
Yeah, that's a good question. Have you thought about this? I haven't thought about this before, so I'm going to have to do some play processing here. So sorry to everyone listening.
That's where your buddy bonding is, probably.
Yeah, it's well, you can kind of see your own struggles in the other person, And this, we already talked about this, like feeling last and last. And I think it's both a great way to learn, but also a great way to connect, because it helps you to have empathy with the other person. You see the other person in a negative state, that they're just stuck in there, that they don't want to deal with it. You know how that feels. Like Holly struggles with demon feelings. I know how that feels. Like, this has held me back my entire life. And then having empathy with that, and like kind of seeing yourself in it, also seeing that, oh, she struggles with that, she can get through it. Like, I believe that she can get through it. And it's even easier to believe that she can deal with it than that I can deal with that. But then I can kind of turn this back on me, right? Because sometimes it's easier that you want to help other people, but you don't want to help yourself in the same way, or you don't want to extend the same kind of kindness to yourself. But yeah, we kind of, you see also like just how much we both work, how much we kind of approach, I guess, problems with a certain kind of seriousness, that we just want to solve the problem. And you see the good thing in that, but then also the drawback of like not doing the feelings first, neglecting the feelings. You learn about especially the blast last, and just the void of communication. You see the other person doing that, you get annoyed by it, and fuck, I must be doing the same thing. That's great help.
I have a lot of spiritual talks with friends, like at the cafe, and like we'll talk about like, well, I mean, like someone says so and so didn't connect with me, and I'm like, did you connect with? You don't sound very open right now. Like, you don't say that. You're like, in the back of your head, you're like, you don't sound very open. Like, it's like you have to reach out and like brush the person like awkwardly, like, hi, do you want to connect? And they're like, no. And they're like, I'm rejected. Like, it's like, well, it's not that way. You still have to be the one, if neither of you are connecting, be the one to reach out and like initially. But you know what the empathy thing made me think of, and this is a bit off, but it's Stephen Colbert said, this is an interview. If you watch the Stephen Colbert interview with is it Anderson Cooper, and he says Stephen Colbert is talking about the tragedy of his life, where he lost multiple brothers and his dad in an early age, and he said, "What punishments of God are not gifts?" And Anderson Cooper starts starts tearing up. The thing that was like, and I've just been thinking that myself with my crash. Like, I'm like, and he says, he's quoting Tolkien. Tolkien said that, but I'm just like, that he explains it. He's like, well, when you know what someone's been through, when you've been through the hard times, like, you have empathy. It's a gift because now you know what they're going through, even though you've overcome it and they haven't, and they're still in pain. Like, you have empathy. And it's something that we have to, when Shan says the two highest virtues are Zen and empathy, all she's saying is peace and love. How watered down is that? Nothing new has been discovered. You're just saying peace in my mind, love for others. Peace, observer problems, love, decider, connection. Like, that's all you're saying. And often what everyone, I held up my middle finger. Often what everyone wants is just love, and peace is just a tool to get to true love. Like, because I'm not getting mad, I'm not getting annoyed. I love this person. So what you're saying is I feel their pain. I empathize with them. That opens me up back to self-love, because I love them, even though therefore I love myself, and I forgive myself. And it's all that.
But then also with connecting and just blaming the other person for I couldn't connect with them, you have to give what you want first. You need to be willing to give, no matter if it comes back or not. Because in certain cases it won't. That you try to reach out, that you want to connect to the other person, and you do that like from a good, strong base, but then the other person might not be ready or might not like you, whatever. Like, totally can happen. It's out of your control, but you still need to keep giving until you then get something back. And if you just keep giving from the right place, you will get back whatever you need. And maybe not getting something back is exactly what you need right now.
It's hard telling a 4 friend this, because they're like, I help someone out with their car and then I ask them to help me back, and they don't know. I give and give and give and no one helps me. I was trying to say, hey, just give. I figured out the solution is just hand stuff out, and opportunities just start coming your way, and they can't see it because they helped the wrong people. They help their friends. And I just practice helping businesses and helping strangers and helping there wasn't the need, there wasn't any I see, because they were helping their friends. There was an expectation and a need for something to come back, and that attachment came back to them. Whereas I'm giving to my family. I'm like, the hardest thing, the scariest thing for me that Shan was saying was becoming a man of your word. You were saying do the actions, and that it's just like, I say I'm gonna do this, and I just keep not doing it because it's ST, because it's reality, because it's all in my head, and it's just like the writing down the notes, and even just the having the to-do list where you're like, I write down 3 things I already did today so I can cross them off, and just having it so it's like every time I write something down, I get that done, or I say no, it didn't matter anymore. But I don't do anything I didn't say I was gonna do on that note list. And it's just become such a strong habit. I'm like all of these people talk about building up that trust with yourself.
Yeah.
Doing the thing you say here is building up trust with yourself, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's the integrity. Okay. Great talk.
You haven't asked that question though. Like, what do you think we can learn from our similarities?
Well, I'm afraid she looks so scared.
You pretty much said everything.
Oh, I did. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, it's just like when you see someone who has pretty much the same demons as you, like pushing through and doing the things that are hard, it's really inspiring, because you're like, well, if they can do it, I can do it too.
Yes.
And you do have that empathy when things happen that trigger you, and you know that they're probably being triggered in a kind of similar way. So, yeah.
Okay. Great talk. I think it's time to sign off. Sayonara, everyone.
Bye.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Bye.